Thank you everyone for showing up. I really appreciate it. Um, I'm Dana Stovern. I am the founder and coach of the Magic of Somatic Money. And this is like a re-maiden voyage. I wrote it up in the email. I don't know if you read it or not, but basically, I have been working on this somatic money platform since 2011-ish, 2012. And my spirit team had me relaunch my platform coming out of a divorce and move. It was like relaunch my platform to go a whole other level to begin to get it out to a lot more people. For a very long time, I've been basically doing vending and, small stuff and one-on-one coaching and doing my research and development and all the foundational things. And, now it's time to take it to a whole other level. And then we had the whole election thing happen in the fall, and I did a video and I went viral, and the next thing I know, I'm on the front lines doing spiritual work, spiritual help for everybody, which is great, which is fine because like that's my foundation. So this video right here tonight is like me kind of putting my foot in the door saying, we're going to get back to somatic money. We're going to get back to body-based money relationship. And so what I know, like what I've learned and what I know is that doing spirituality out in the public space is a lot more acceptable or accepted than doing spiritual finances out in public space. And quite frankly, spiritual finance is a lot more personal. It's a lot more vulnerable. And I'm finding that it's challenging for people to like step forward and talk about their finances in a vulnerable way about spirituality in that public space. So my solution is like, okay, I'll do the spiritual stuff out there in the world. Um, and then we're going to do this very private, somatic money, spiritual, personal finance thing here. Like, I don't know if you've been on my other lives, but like right now in Zoom, like, doesn't this feel kind of like, more cozy, more personal, more like a lot more safe because we're not doing this out in the public sphere so much. So, that's kind of a little bit about where I'm at with this. Now, if you want to find out like who I am and where I'm at with body-based money relationship and like the inception, like where it came from, I have a bio page, and on that bio page, there are 3 videos, and it's the third video. The third video is where I talk about the inception of somatic money. And it's a crazy story. Just real briefly, I had some real crises happen in my life, hit a rock bottom, bounced along there for a little while, and then I had what I called a spiritual, financial, intervention where spirit world literally showed up on behalf of me for my finances, for my personal relationship with my finances. And they started walking me through a series of very intense information and energies and healings. And ever since that happened, I've basically been doing a form of spiritual body-based money relationship and communing with spirit world about it ever since that happened. And that was like 2011-ish. And so ever since then, I've been doing a lot of research and development. And then most of that was really culminated. And so the last 2 years, I've been building the platform. That all said, what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be kicking off the introduction. My brainchild here is I'm thinking tonight's the first night that I'm going to be doing many, many, many of these. This is the first of a series. I have enough to do these like easily for a couple years every other week or so. Like that's how crazy I am with this stuff. So I just want you to know this is the first of many. It's going to be very, very basic. It is going to introduce you to the concept of the sacred feminine and body-based money relationship so that you can begin to wrap your brain and then connect in with your body, but wrap your brain around this idea of the sacred feminine with money and body-based money relationship with money. Now, I do want to say that there are a lot of people out there doing sacred femme work with money. A lot of it is in the abundance area. A lot of it is in the manifestation area. I think these are important aspects. What makes me different is that I have done a lot of really, really deep, very particular research concerning how our bodies and our emotions in our bodies and our energies in our bodies interact directly with the financial transaction point. And I want you to really hear that. I am working with specifics through the body at the financial transaction point. So this is not about theoretical sacred money out there or theoretical body-based money relationship out there. No, this is practices that are very articulate to being present in your body at your financial transaction point. And it takes people a little while to get there to really grasp what that means, because we have been indoctrinated into what I call a toxic financial patriarchy. So let me talk with you a little bit about what I mean by toxic financial patriarchy. I've talked just briefly about we're going to be doing sacred feminine body-based money relationship work. Well, this is in the face of, or this is in light of what most of us have been indoctrinated into and trained into, which is a toxic financial patriarchal system. And the toxic financial patriarchal system basically says, you think about money in your brain, you calculate your numbers in your brain, you do your logic and your strategization with money in your brain, and you forget about everything else. You set aside how you're feeling. You set aside what's going on in your body. You don't get touchy-feely with your money and your numbers, because what we are taught and told is money is only logic, money is only practical, money is only physical. That right there leaves out about 70 to 65% of the financial information going on in your body. That picture of money is only logic, money is only numbers, money is only strategy, money is only physical, that's actually the masculine physical aspect of money. There's three other parts of money. There's the feminine intuitive and flow with money, there's the money value, and then there's the money empowerment department. So, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but long and the short of it, what I want you to know is that if you are only thinking about money in your brain, only calculating and strategizing with money in your brain, and you're shoving off your emotions and you're shoving off the energies and you're not paying attention to what's going on in your body, you are missing vital aspects of your money that can inform how you relate and interact with your money and actually transform your financial relationship. So that's just a snapshot, just kind of an overview beginning snapshot here. Then I'm going to be speaking to like most of you probably have read the 4 pro tips, the Somatic Money 4 pro tips. That was the introductory free offer that I've got coming into my website. This talk is about those 4 points. So I'm not going to like read the paragraphs to you. Like you've already done that. You can do that. But I'm going to be speaking off of that and giving it more color and more texture. This is the video that's going to sit on that page so that people can read and also hear me. And so I want to do an added value thing here tonight. That's what we're going to be doing. But Spirit Team is going to weigh in. And so for those of you that don't know, the good majority of how a lot of this information has come in is like I would be in session with clients and I would be tuned into session to spirit team, like my spirit team, their spirit team, and the client energy field, the client's body, and I would be doing the energy work and receiving the messages and information as well there. And so if you are not, how do I put this? If you get into somatic money, you will find that one of the aspects that I do in my work with somatic money is that I have people call in their spirit money guides or their divine financial light team. And so what's going on right now is Spirit World is showing up, which is totally normal for the work that I do here because they're the ones that have helped inform and choreograph and point me in a lot of the right directions. So they're coming in right now and they're going knock, knock, knock. They're going, Dana, invite us in. And not only me inviting them in, but you tonight inviting in your spirit money team or your divine financial light team. So we're going to do that for a minute here. So I just want you to take a breath in, blow it out, and then in your mind's eye or with your intent, I just want you to call in your highest and best, always highest and best for support, guidance, and protection, your spirit money team or your spirit money guide or your divine financial light team. You choose what you want that to be. So we are calling in everyone's for highest and best spirit money team and or spirit money guide and or divine financial light team. And if you've got another name, maybe it's your money angels or money archangels, you need to call them in and ask them to, woo, that's a lot of energy. So you need to call them in and ask them to come in, highest and best only for support, guidance, and protection, to help you with your money relationship, both physical money relationship, energetic money relationship, emotional money relationships. See, these are all the things that do not get talked about in personal finance. You know, you go sit down and ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk the numbers. There's the physical numbers, the energetic numbers, the emotional numbers, or the EQ, what I would call the EQ numbers. Okay, so Spirit team has said, okay, pretty much everybody, yeah, everybody's got their spirit money team. I got to tell you, a lot of you have been walking around without your spirit money guide or your spirit money teams. And that's left you financially wide open. This is going to help you out. If you like, I really encourage you, go to my bio page, go watch that third video where I get introduced to my spirit money guide for the first time. It was amazing. It'll give you an idea of how this works. Okay, let me just tune in here. Okay, they're saying somebody wants to talk and is saying, can you explain body-based money relationship? Absolutely. Everybody, I want you to take one of your hands and I want you to take your hand and put it right beneath your navel. Like locate your belly button and then put your hand right beneath your navel. When you do that, you need to know that is your second chakra. So we have light fields or energy centers through our body. Crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus is stomach. Second chakra, the hand right beneath the navel, that's second chakra. Pelvis, the root chakra, then the legs, knees, and feet into the earth chakra below. Your hand right beneath your navel, sitting with the second chakra, that is your home of money relationship. So follow me on this. Again, we get trained and taught, calculate your money in your brain, do your numbers and money up here. It's all logistics, right? That's what the toxic financial patriarchy is going to say. It's only the numbers. That's it. Like everything else out. I'm sitting here going, no, that's like we're missing 65 to 70% of the information. While you're calculating your numbers in your brain, those numbers connect up to the rest of your body. When you calculate or think about numbers in your brain, you're working with your money, those thoughts in your brain are connected up to emotions that you feel in your body, triggers, biological triggers that happen through your body, and energy light field, those chakras, energy light field centers in your body that totally relate and respond to those thoughts that you're having. And as you're thinking about the money stuff in your brain, the actual home of money is where your hand is, right beneath your navel. Your home of money is sitting in your second chakra. And you're like, how does that work? Well, the second chakra, the energy center, is the home of partnership, agreement, and exchange. So the toxic patriarchy is going to say, oh no, money is about the numbers and then the money in your bank account. I'm going to tell you that's your result. That's your result, and that's what you're working with. The true home of money, where you create money and conceive money and relate and respond with money, the real home of that is sitting in your second chakra, where you are interacting with financial partners, having financial exchanges, and in your body and in your world and in your life, you have financial agreements. So to answer your question, body-based money relationship is when you leave your mental thoughts about money and you begin to track how is your body responding to those financial interactions that you're having. How are you feeling emotions in your body to financial events going on? What energies are you picking up on in your body in relationship with money? So traditionally, money has been seen as a throat up, face, like brain interaction. And what I'm here to tell you is you're leaving out the rest of your body, and there's all this data in your body informing your money relationship and actually pushing your numbers around. That gives a little bit more of a foundation of what body-based money relationship is about. So the outline of what I'm going to be talking about tonight, now that we did introduction, foundation, the rest of this Zoom, I'm going to be speaking to those 4 pro tips or those 4 highlights of somatic money that any beginner, anybody that's new to this, coming to this, needs to begin to pay attention to out of the gate. And it's actually 4 points with an add-on in the front. One more thing that I want to make reference to here. When you signed up for that free Four Somatic Money Pro tips, when you signed up for that and went in, you saw me talking about EQ money resiliency. And I totally understand that was me like talking to the backside of the moon, because a lot of people don't know what EQ is. EQ is emotional intelligence. So what I'm speaking to there is about emotional intelligence with your internal emotional resiliency with your money. Now, the toxic financial patriarchy is going to say, go calculate your numbers. Do you know how much I have heard from people about how they suffer and procrastinate and trigger and they're in pain and they can't get to their financial calculations for their weekly or monthly budgets? They can't get to the logistical functionality of their money. That's all in their brains. And you know why? Because we don't get trained on how to be present with the subsequent emotion that happens with the money when we go to calculate our numbers with our money. So when I say something like your emotional intelligence with your inner resiliency, your inner emotional resiliency with money, that's your foundation. And what I will say is the more you heal your inner emotional resiliency and the more you're present with your inner emotional resiliency and the more you're functional with your inner emotional intelligence with resiliency, the better you're going to be able to meet the logistics of your numbers. The better you're gonna be able to sit down and calculate numbers, or you won't procrastinate as much, or you won't self-sabotage, or you won't have the myriad of shadow world things that happen emotionally with money that keep you from doing good money work. So consider it like this. The patriarchy is saying, calculate, calculate, calculate. I am saying, oh, honey, sacred feminine, support, healing, health, emotional health, supporting your inner vulnerable space, supporting you so you can do your calculations. That's what we've been missing. That's what somatic money is all about. It is helping you locate where you're already strong with your money, but then where you're not very strong with your money, and locating where you're vulnerable and where you trip and fall and stumble with that vulnerability, with your breakdown of inner emotional resiliency, and causing you to have blocks or not to be able to get to do the kind of money work that you want to or need to do on the planet at this time. So everything that I'm going to be talking about this evening has to do with how do we contribute to supporting your healthy EQ money resiliency vessel. What are the types of things you want to begin to pay attention to emotionally in your body, energetically in your body, the vulnerability in your body with your emotional intelligence to begin to provide support, health, healing, so that you begin to have a greater functionality, even if it does feel vulnerable, you begin to have a greater functionality there. That is you building your emotional resiliency. And when your emotional resiliency goes up, guess what? Your financial resiliency comes right along. So toxic financial patriarchy will say to you, get all the emotion out of the money. You know, that's bad. It's emotionalism. It's going to lead you astray. And I'm of the mind of like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Emotionalism with money is not great. But if you don't know your emotional truth with money, or you don't know your emotional resiliency with money, then you are leaving yourself wide open. And so greater and greater emotional resilience, the health of emotional resilience, is going to contribute to that support of your finances, of your logistics with money, of your ability to work with money. So me here tonight, what we're talking about is cultivating the sacred feminine with money through the body in the way, so that your emotional resilience begins to come online. And as your emotional resilience comes online, your ability to work with money is going to get stronger and healthier and happier. Okay, so 4 Somatic Money Pro tips. These are the things that I always really want my people to start with. And we're going to start with number 1. So when I first connect up with a new client, one of my first couple of questions is going to be like, do you have a presence practice? And what does your bookkeeping look like? Now, most people who come to me, they're freaked out because they're like, I don't want to show you my numbers, Dana, or like, I'm afraid of that. And I'm like, that's fine, that's fine. We're not talking about that anyway. That would be like for an accountant. You take your bookkeeping to an accountant. An accountant is going to sit down and talk with you about the logistics of your numbers. I'm going to sit down and talk with you about the emotional mechanics of your numbers. So I really don't necessarily need to see the numbers, but I want to see how you're interacting with the numbers. Like what do we do? What do we usually do? We usually go whoomp, right to the numbers. And I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. There's the numbers, but then there's how are you interacting with the numbers in your bookkeeping space? So one of my first questions with people is, no harm, no foul, no judgment. Tell me what your bookkeeping looks like. Just describe that to me. No judgment whatsoever. We're just looking at dynamics. That's going to be first question. The other question I'm going to ask is, do you have a presence practice? Those 2 questions usually throw people for a loop because we're so focused of like, bam, right into the numbers. And I'm like, no, pre-step, pre-game, pre-step. Do you have a presence practice? What does your actual bookkeeping space or bookkeeping practice look like? So the reason I ask about a presence practice is, what's the first thing you need to have to build your emotional resilience. You need to be present. You need to be doing your slowing down, getting present in your body, grounding, breathing, centering. You need to be, you need to have a presence practice where you are like in your core on a regular basis. I call it, a lot of times in my videos anymore, I call it self-regulation. Because when we begin to get present in our bodies, guess what happens? Triggers begin to come down. Self-regulation begins to come up. We begin to be more aware. We begin to be more cognizant. What could be more important than that with money? Here's the thing that happens. Most of us with money, we're so freaked out by money and we're so triggered out by money, we just like, foop, we leave our bodies with money. We stop breathing with money and we go into a trigger state with money. So my first question for everybody, my clients, anybody that I'm working with, anybody I'm talking to is hey, you got a presence practice? You really need a presence practice. And I know that sounds so mundane and like a letdown and the whole thing, but I guarantee you, your presence practice with your money is the most important thing you can do with your money in your life. And I've literally seen people begin to do a presence practice with their money and it puts money in their bank account. And you know why? Because when you're grounding, breathing, centering, and getting yourself, I'm really getting like soapboxy. When you're grounding, breathing, centering, and getting present in your body with your money, you're filling up your vessel. And what does your money do? Your money goes, they're present. Oh, they're filling up their vessel. Oh, there's more coming in. There's more coming in. And what does the money want to do? Excuse me, the money wants to show up too. The money wants to show up and reflect with you because guess what? Money has a vibratory sequence to it. Money is energy. Money has a vibration. And so if you are vibrating more and more in your body, then your money's going to start going, oh, we're showing up. Yes, yes, I'm going to show up more for you too. This is why a presence practice with money is so important, like physically with money, but then it's also going to begin to reverse the damage of what I call financial trauma. And financial trauma is when you are so out of your head with money and you're triggering fight, flight, freeze, fawn in a certain series because of trauma and wounding, then it becomes very difficult to work with your money. And when you're doing a presence practice, that all begins, the heat on that begins to come down. Your inner emotional resilience begins to come up and you begin to have better functionality with your finances. So on presence practice, that is a whole topic. Like I can and I will be spending an entire evening talking about presence practice. If you want a presence practice with money, go to my webpage, go to blueprint number 2 and start on are you present in your body with your money? That is a presence practice. Go start on that. I think it's like I've got it. It's only $24. Go do that. It'll walk you through the whole thing. Okay. Thank you for asking. So here I've got you in this first step of asking, do you have a presence practice and what does your bookkeeping look like? And typically what I find out is if people don't have a presence practice, typically their bookkeeping isn't great because they don't know how to be there or be present. But when somebody has a presence practice, usually their bookkeeping is somewhat online. So my first suggestion here for you, like that first pro tip is start paying attention to your presence practice and then begin to notice how you are interacting with your bookkeeping space. Now, bookkeeping space is like, I've seen people like it's all over the map. I have people from like, yeah, I have no bookkeeping space and I just do money on the fly to all the way to people who are like, oh my God, I meticulously sit down and do money like 3 nights a week. So, it runs the gamut and you need to find out what's important for you. But what I will tell you is the telltale signs of what's going on with a presence practice and how you are treating your bookkeeping says a lot about how you are interacting with your money. We've already talked about this a little bit. Pro tip number 2 basically boils down to the difference between financial masking and financial emoting. I've already just talked about it a little bit, but I really want to bring presence here. And that is this idea that in the financial community, we get taught and trained that having any kind of emotion with money is bad because you don't dare want to be emotional with your money because then you make bad financial decisions. That thought process with the toxic financial patriarchy has caused us to throw out hundreds of years of very important emotionally intelligent data concerning our bodies with our money. And so this is the reframe that I want to give to you. This is the reframe. The whole idea about being emotional with money, to me, that's being in a triggered space with money, and that's not great. I will grant you that. That's not great. But the solution to just then shut down emotion, that's not great either. Like what we're talking about here is two extremes. Don't want to be emotional, the emotionalism with money, and then so because we don't want to be emotional with it, we just shut it all down. That does not work. There is a middle ground. And the middle ground, it's like what I've been talking about so far this evening. The middle ground is to begin to locate what is my emotional truth with my money in my body. That's emotional resiliency with money. It basically says, here's an example. Let's say you recently had a financial event and you felt something about that financial event. But some part of you went, no, I can't feel that because feeling things about my money is bad. So we're going to stuff it. And I can only be logical in my head with money so I can keep it on track. What I will tell you is, yes, you need the logic with your money in your brain, but I want you to bring back that emotional trigger piece or that emotional piece that you felt. And I want you to lean in and feel your feels and process it. I want you to process the emotionalism that you had with a certain financial event so that what you can do is you process it and you get down to your emotional truth about that money, your emotionally intelligent truth. Because when you know your emotionally intelligent truth about certain aspects of your finances, that's where you begin to have your emotional resiliency. You begin to stand more on your own 2 feet with money, and your money begins to line up. So pro tip number 2 is it's time to begin to recognize when you financially mask, like deny it or shove it off or stuff it down or be in denial about it or like gaslight yourself and basically go, there's no emotionalism with money, which is so not true. Instead of doing the masking, you begin to go, oh, I had a financial event. I felt triggers come through. I felt emotion come through. I felt energy come through. I felt something happen in my body come through. And you acknowledge it. You acknowledge it and go, I had that experience. Feel the feels, process the emotion, the energy, the experience, and arrive at your new truth. That's your new emotionally intelligent financial truth. That's foundational. You need that as much as you need financial logic. This is where masculine money, with its logic, then is more in tune and in balance with feminine money and what the feminine is saying about her emotionally intelligent truth about that money. Both what I have found with most people is that a really good functional healthy money picture has both of these aspects going on. The logic, but the logic's not squashing the feminine, and the feminine with emotional intelligence, but she's not washing away the logic. They're in tandem. One is processing and the other's processing, and they're working in unison. And when that happens, it's a truly beautiful thing. What exactly do I mean by masking? I would suggest to you, Marga, look up emotional masking, like Google it, look up emotional masking and find out what that is. Another name for it would be gaslighting, when we gaslight others or gaslight ourselves. It's basically, masking is basically denying yourself how you feel about something, or denying someone else about how they feel about something. Emotional masking or emotional gaslighting. I really suggest you look that up and learn a little bit more about it. Sean is right. Yeah, shoving emotions under the rug, hiding behind a mask, so speak. Yeah, ignoring it. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, Spirit World is coming in and they just want to make a few suggestions to everybody listening. So, and I'm going to channel them. They're basically saying, they're saying, folks, Dana is saying a lot of stuff tonight that is breaking rules. And so you might feel uncomfortable, or it might be dismantling things, or it might be a little bit too much. Like you might be having overwhelm. And they're saying, this is all totally normal. Like, because, and then this is me now. Like they said their thing, this is me now. What I'm gonna say is, everything that I am saying is creating cracks for you to experience your vulnerability financially. And that's something we don't get permission to do, hardly at all. So just know that everything that I'm bringing up, I'm breaking rules. And that might be uncomfortable, totally understandable. That might be overwhelming because we're causing shift. That's totally understandable. And the best suggestion I have for you is like, breathe through it. You just want to breathe, and you just want to talk with yourself about, I'm feeling some vulnerability here. That's all part of it. And the whole idea is to begin to be present with that and breathe through it so that your body can process. There it is, body-based money relationships, so that your body can release what it needs to release, and it can process what it needs to process. The spirit world is coming in again. Spirit team is saying to some of you, they're saying, this is going to cause you to have some new ideas to rethink how you have approached your finances. And it will cause you to begin to create new habits. And they're like, let that begin to come through a little bit for yourself in whatever form or way that works for you. I can hear them saying something about, and I've talked about this before. There is such a thing called emotional logic or emotional data. The patriarchy is all about, it's all the facts and the data and the science. Um, Sacred Feminine has its own thing where it says emotional intelligence has its emotional data. It's emotionally intelligent data. It has its emotional factual data. That is a thing. So exploring that is part of all of this as well. Thank you, Tracy. She's saying, I'm loving this. I'm so resonating with this. I feel like the missing puzzle piece yes, that is exactly how I felt about this whole thing. I cannot tell you the hundreds of clients I've worked with, and they're like, I've struggled here and I've struggled here. And I'm like, try this, try that. And they're like, it's like everything comes on in Technicolor when you get these pieces. When you give yourself permission to do what I'm talking about, it all kind of comes on in Technicolor, and you're like, yeah, I got it. I got it. So, all right. So this was pro tip. What I just talked about here. Pro tip number 2, moving from financial masking into financial emotional intelligence, allowing yourself to emote an experience so that you can feel your feels and then process it, arriving into your new emotional financial truth. Very important. Okay, we're going to go to pro tip number 3. Like, this is the inside baseball of somatic money. And the person who asked about a presence practice, and I said, go get blueprint number 2 and do the, are you present in your body with money? Like, I can't tell you how important that blueprint is. So pro tip number 2 truly is your financial presence practice, and beginning to do that and cultivate it and what that looks like. Because, and it's what I've said a little bit earlier in the evening, that when you're not present in your body, how can you expect your money to be present in your life? Like, here's the deal. I have so many stories that I could tell. I'm just sitting here going like, I could tell that, I could tell that, I could tell that. So let me just get real quiet, tune in with team and just see like what part of this they want me to talk about, speak to you this evening. So there's this one story. Oh God, I love this story. I love this story. So I'm going to start from the place of one of when it comes to the sacred feminine and emotional resiliency and emotional intelligence with your money, number one, your core thing is you got to have a presence practice with your money at the financial transaction point. And let me be really clear about that. Sometimes people do a presence practice and this is what it looks like. They're like, Dana, I go off and do my money and that's here. And then Dana, I go off and do my spiritual practice and it's over here. And I'm like, have you ever thought about merging the two? That's what happens. The patriarchy has been so powerful with their hold on how to do money, they have excoriated spirituality out of the money space. And spirituality has been like, the church and religion and spiritual practice has been so freaked out by having money in the spiritual space. Like the two are like, right? Like they've been so divided for so long. People don't even realize how compartmentalized their spiritual life is or their emotional life and their logistical finance. Through all of this, of course, the clients I've worked with, audiences that I've worked with, my whole soapbox is, you got to have a presence practice with money in the financial space. And that's very particular. Most people don't get that far. They're like, Dana, I go do money over here, and then I do my spirituality or my presence practice over here. And I'm like, merge them. And this is where people go, oh, I never thought about that. This is me going back to the beginning of the talk. You taking your presence practice and using it, doing a grounding, breathing presence practice at your financial transaction space. And I mean, like when I first tell people, they're like, what? And I'm like, try it. The next time you go do retail, do your presence practice in your transaction spot. See how that goes. See how that's different. See how usually you check out and stop breathing. What happens when you're present at that transaction point? And here's the story. I was working with, let's see, this lady, she was a corporate nurse in Denver. Her bosses wouldn't listen to, like, she had a hard time getting people to listen to her. She was in for a raise. There were challenges going on with finances. And I was doing this thing. I was doing this thing of like, God, we've got to, I literally would say to her, we've got to get you into your body. We got to get you grounded, breathing, centered into your body at your transaction point. And we must have wrestled like, and I did energy work with her and healing work. And we talked about the philosophy and the psychology. Like we went around, like this went on for a couple of sessions. And then like middle of the third session, all of a sudden she got really quiet. She was like it just got dead quiet on the phone, like dead quiet. And I was like, are you still there? What's going on? And all of a sudden she's like, Dana, I think I get it. She's like, I think what you're trying to tell me is like, drop the drama, drop all this stuff. And I got a ground breathe center and be in my center because like, I need to be in my center so that I can say, money, X marks the spot. Here I am. Money, come here. And got like, it was everything that it was everything I could do. I didn't want to laugh because I didn't want her to think I was laughing at her, but because I'm like, no matter how people get their stuff, they get their stuff, and that's important. And she was getting her stuff, and I really wanted to honor that. But like me personally, I was like, oh my God, that is so freaking funny, hilarious in such a right way. It was like crazy funny, and I've always remembered it because like we wrestled so hard and we worked on it so hard, and then all of a sudden she was like lightning bolt from the sky, and her interpretation was, if I'm grounding, breathing, centering in my center with my finances at the transaction point, I'm basically saying, X marks the spot, money come here. And I'm like, perfect, spot on. So that's just one. That is just one of like hundreds of, thousands of presence practice stories I have worked on with people, walked through with people. And what I will tell you is every person has their own version that is very unique and authentic to them. And that's what you've got to find. That's what you've got to find out for yourself. So your number 3 pro tip is if you get anything out of this Zoom tonight, it is please, please presence practice with your money at the transaction spot. Not presence practice, theoretical money out there, not presence practice, spirituality, abundance out there. This is presence practice into your body, anchoring as the financial stuff is happening. That's how particular I get. That's how articulate it is. That is how powerful and important it is. Grounding, breathing, centering is a great mantra to say when at retail transaction spot. It totally is. It will bring you up by your short hairs. Somebody on Spirit Team is saying, they're like, Dana, you collectively got everybody in their body all at once with their money. Fantastic. Yeah, that's what I'm living for. Woohoo! We win tonight, everybody. Okay. I don't know. All of a sudden, I just feel so much joy that we did that tonight. That just makes me so happy. If anything, just remember tonight about how happy I get when people are present in their bodies at their transaction point. Because, like, I know it works and I know it heals and I know it empowers and I know it makes money better, especially over a period of time. Okay. Be still my heart. We got everybody present. That was so lovely. All right. Pro tip number 4. What do I got down for pro tip number 4? Financial vulnerability. We kind of have already answered to this. Spirit Team kind of channeled that in, answered to it about acknowledging financial vulnerability. Here, pro tip number 4, financial vulnerability, acknowledging, embracing financial vulnerability. This is a bit of a repeat from some of the stuff that I've already covered tonight, but let's go ahead and repeat. It doesn't hurt to hear it a second time because I know a lot of you are hearing this for the first time, probably. Let me just start from the point, from the top. Hang on, I need a sip of tea here. Hang on. Let's start from this point. The toxic financial patriarchy has moved everyone off of and out of and left of center of their financial vulnerability space. And they've not only done that, then they have labeled it as bad, right? So not only if you feel financial vulnerability, you're trained to like run for the hills, and then you're trained to demonize that financial vulnerability that you're experiencing. And this has been going on for centuries, people, centuries and centuries. Like when I get into the space and to start talking about it, like it feels so painful for me through my body to think of the millions of people that have been trained for centuries in this space and the absolute suffering that has happened because of it. And I get so pissed off, raging mad about it. Like that's where I'm at with it. So what I want you to know is this. The first thing I want you to know is the vulnerability that you feel with your finances is precious to you. I know, counterintuitive, right? Think about that again. Your financial vulnerability is precious because it is yours and it is at the place of your sovereign financial birthright. Let me say that again. The inception of the inception of the authentic space that you hold with money inherently has vulnerability built into it. So if you deny yourself your vulnerability with your money, then you are denying yourself a precious aspect of your finances, a precious functional aspect of your finances. All right, now that I said that in that light, let me say this next step, step number 2. You embracing your financial vulnerability is one of the most precious and powerful things that you can do in your money relationship ever. So you know that whole thing about how we get trained to run for the hills and deny the vulnerability? This is an about face. This is a counterintuitive about face. And it basically says, I feel this is you with your, just imagine yourself, you're holding your money and you saying to yourself, sometimes I feel vulnerable with my finances. That's true. Like, I don't know anybody that has done anything with money through their life and not had some sort of financial vulnerability kind of feeling. So the first thing I want you to know in this area of financial vulnerability is beginning to have an idea that it is okay to acknowledge the vulnerability that you feel with your finances because it is precious and authentic and it is your sovereign birthright. It's the opening, the gateway to your true financial power, quite frankly. So you being able to turn around and embrace that vulnerability is like one of the most powerful financial things you can do for yourself. And in embracing that financial vulnerability, you're also acknowledging your financial vulnerability. This goes back to that thing about masking. We usually get trained like, oh, I feel vulnerable. Mask, mask, mask. Don't feel, don't feel, don't feel. I'm asking you to turn around and go, I acknowledge that I feel financial vulnerability. I acknowledge it. And I'm embracing that financial vulnerability. I'm asking you to do a complete counterintuitive turnaround. And this is what I will tell you. Vulnerability, that heart cracked open, vulnerable space that you feel with your finances, is the place where healing happens, is the place where empowerment through that healing happens, and that is the place where you take your financial life back. It happens in baby steps. It happens in aspects. It doesn't like it can happen overnight, but it happens with the presence practice. Like what I said, presence practice, you do your presence practice, the vulnerability comes up, you hold your presence practice with that space, acknowledging the vulnerability, embracing the vulnerability, and letting yourself know that you are precious in that vulnerability because it's authentic to you. It is your sovereign birthright. You are powerful in that vulnerability. That is your place of healing. That's where you crack. So the light comes through and your healing happens. And that is where you reclaim the your financial empowerment. Now, I'm talking in theory, basically, a lot of theory, but the process of the magic of somatic money is exactly that process. And it begins with everything that I've talked about here in the 4 pro tips. And so this 4th pro tip about acknowledging your vulnerability and embracing your vulnerability is one of the steps, one of the ways to track back into the core and the heart of your finances so that you can be financially functional in a much more full, whole, cohesive, and empowered kind of way. Vulnerability is like financial vulnerability. Okay, let's do an example. Let's say a financial event has happened in your life, and that place where you feel exposure, that's vulnerability. It could be emotional exposure, it could be physical exposure, it could be energetic exposure, it could be partnership, it could be any kind of exposure. But vulnerability is that place where you're like, I feel exposure, and then you react to it like with shame or denial or triggers or like any number of shadow aspects. But when you're able to turn around and go, where I feel that exposure, I'm going to hold space with that. That's you turning around and holding space with your vulnerability. Very short answer. There's so many. I mean, Brene Brown has basically done a lifetime of work on vulnerability. So I would say her work plugged in here is very helpful. I've actually spoken about into her work with this. But so if you need more on the topic of vulnerability, Brene Brown's work is going to be great on that. But I would say it comes down to exposure, where you feel exposure, and then you're triggered reaction to that exposure, emotionally, energetically, physically. So, Terry, so crying, scarcity. So crying is an emotive response. Track in further and go, what is causing me to cry? That's the vulnerability. Scarcity. Scarcity is identifying how you're feeling about something. Where is that part of this vulnerability from that scarcity coming from? Seeing it's like with our money, we have so not been allowed to experience our vulnerability and acknowledge it and embrace it. Like what you guys are saying is like, what is that? My response to you is exactly. And this is where your exploration begins, definitely. How does this help with vulnerability in the stock market? I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you rephrase the question? I'm actually, so I'm retired and all is good for a year. I don't have control. Right. Okay. So the ups and downs of the stock market is causing you to feel vulnerable. You feel exposed, right? So where you feel exposed, watch how you're reacting. You need to pay attention to how you're reacting. And instead of like following the rabbit down the rabbit hole and the reactions, you need to turn around and embrace where you feel exposed. That's the practice. And it's through using your presence practice at that vulnerable or exposed place. That's where new ideas, new emotions, new healings, new things begin to arrive to begin to give you some solutions. And what I'm talking about, what I'm talking about is a practice and a process. So those are the four highlights, the four pro tip somatic money highlights that I have, which are basically, each one of these is like a doorway into the work. And they all stand on their own, but they're also very interconnected with one another. I'll just be honest with you guys. All of a sudden I'm like, zhoop, the informational flow stopped. Like spirit team has stopped talking. I feel like I've arrived at the place of like, I've completed the messaging that I need to for this evening. So if you want to, I can take some questions. Lydia, I have no retirement or very little and not much time left before retirement. Plus with today's climate, what do I do? How do I move through this? So, Lydia, I have a lot of compassion for you. What you are asking about is a structural money issue. So what I would say is use this work, use my work to help support your emotional resiliency. And then I would say, go talk with an elder financial counselor that is going to help you with strategies for where you're at this point. So use my work, the sacred feminine, to hold that vessel. And then go do some logistical thing. You're going to use this to hold the vessel so that you have the support so you can go do the logistical things. And then Shauna has an example here. In my 20s, I used to feel a lot, where's my glasses? In my 20s, I used to feel a lot of shame around not having enough money, not being able to pay my bills, and I would be embarrassed to ask for help. That vulnerability followed me into every relationship and not being able to be honest around my money fears and insecurities. When I embrace that vulnerability and witness it, it heals. Fantastic example. You, Bertha. Does presence practice work for other areas? Purchasing a home? Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are other, yes, yes, yes. That's the idea. That's yes. Yes, happy, thank you, more pleased of that. Yes. Lydia, perfect. That makes sense. Hannah, this has felt like I've been given the map after wandering around aimlessly. I was getting close to the path, but now I am on it. That fantastic. Thank you, Hannah. That is so awesome. Awesome. Great. So what I want to tell, a couple things I want to tell you. If you want to work with me, I have a $79 15-minute remote somatic money video read. It is on my website, www.somaticmoney.com. You can go book through there, sign up through there. I've also got a 40-minute Zoom VIP somatic money session, and you're more than welcome to sign up there. The somatic money oracle deck is a great way, like that Somatic Money Oracle deck is the highlights of the comprehensive nature of this work. So if you're like, I don't want to work with Dana, like I want to, like I kind of want to dive in, not sure, like the Oracle deck is fantastic. You start doing Oracle polls like a couple days or a couple times a week. Pull it on certain money, you'll begin to get your patterning. And that's how you begin to get really tuned into that vulnerable aspect of your sacred feminine financial work. So the Somatic Money Oracle deck. The last thing is like, I'm just going to keep building these out and doing these. Some will be for free. Some of these will be for fee. It just depends on what it was. And we're just going to start at the top and kind of through. So I think the next one we're going to do is that EQ resiliency survey. A lot of you have been doing the EQ resiliency survey, and it's like, this is the first step. That'll be the next step, and we'll just take it from there. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I will see you in the next gathering. Thank you for being here.